Hello, ladies, and maybe gentlemen. I hope that you've got your hot beverage because I'm going to have some tea with you. Well, one would wonder why I would be having some hot tea on such a sweltering hot day here in South Africa. It's really, really hot. I don't know who's joining me and which parts of the world you are in, but right here, right now in South Africa, we are in the middle of summer. So we have hot days, which brings storms, which brings some complexity to us being able to live stream. So we've been working on that, and we hope that if the storm does rumble in and if the signal suddenly disappears altogether, then our actual power went off and we're going to run outside and fire up generators and then carry on going live, and we're going to see how long that takes. So, what the delay would be. So if I do happen to disappear, please don't just think, oh, well, that's broken live streaming today. Please just hang in there with me, because it might happen, it might not happen, but we're all prepared for the event of possible power failure. But because there's so many storms, we're trying to work a plan around every incident. So if the storms are here, what do? We go on to, battery backup. But our lights have been going dim and bright and dim and bright, so we've gone on to battery. And we might actually find that the power turns off altogether, which would mean that our live stream connection will be gone. But I'm asking you, if you can please hang in there with me if you happen to have joined this live stream, and don't just disappear if I disappear, because we're going to run outside and fire up the generator and carry on, and we want to see how long that takes us. Probably just a couple of minutes. And then we will carry on running the live stream with our generator, which we've got already in the wings. So that's the prelim to today's live streaming. What I want to talk to you about today is a few things. The first thing is, because it's the 23rd of December and we're really close to the end of the year, I wanted to encourage everybody to take time with their families to count your blessings. I know this will be a blessing to you, your family, and the children and each other, and I'm hoping that it'll strengthen you and help you to just weigh up all the good of 2018, because 2018, what I've heard generally speaking, is it has been quite a trial of a year for most. And I think what contributed to that was our economy here in South Africa has been quite serious, in a serious condition, negative that is. But with that comes all sorts of blessings we otherwise would not have, because we've been almost forced into the situation whereby things are bad, load shedding, no power. So now look at us now. We're getting generator backups and we're learning about running generators. So basically we've just gained a whole lot, even if it just be knowledge that we can apply. But we have gained, and I think we have grown. And so that is a blessing. So what I would like you to do is count your blessings. I'd like to encourage you to do that, to count your blessings now with it being the end of the year, and actually be very intentional about it. Maybe even write them down or put them up, or get the children to make a poster, whatever it might be. That's the first thing I wanted to share with you and encourage you. And the second thing is to say to you that you'll see on the Oikos homepage, we've got the previous live streaming, which is sharing with you about the Moms Retreats for 2019. So I hope that some of you will be able to take time aside to attend those Moms Retreats, or make a time for at least attending one, or hopefully two or more. We do have them booked for the last weekend of each uneven month. That'd be January being the first month, March being the third, and so on through the year. So it's basically a booking that we've put on the calendar for the last weekend of every month. We especially chose that last weekend because people were saying that that would suit them the most. We checked this year, 2018. What would be the best time for these Moms Retreats to be on the calendar, and we're making it a priority here at Oikos to be available for you for those Moms Retreats, and so we hope you can make them. But if you want to find out a whole lot more about them, we did talk about them in the previous live stream, episode 33. I think this is episode 34, and it's going to be there on the homepage for a while. And then also, if you're looking for previous live streaming episodes that we've done, the previous 32, they are also on the homepage, on the website, the video tab at the bottom of the menu of the video tab. That, when you click on video, it'll drop down a menu, and the very bottom entry. It says Oikos archive live stream, something like that. And you can go and watch any previous live stream sessions we might have done. So for today, let me see if there's anybody there that is attending and visiting me with my tea. I just have to check here on Facebook because this is what we're live streaming through at the moment. And I'm just going to see if there's somebody there that Sylvie's there. Thank you, Sylvie and Mandy. Sylvie and Mandy. Hi, Sylvie and Mandy. Thank you. Oh, Jamie has already said hello to Sylvie and Mandy. Thank you, ladies, for being there, for attending this, because you know how important it is for me to have somebody that I can actually speak to and not just speak to the camera lens. So I appreciate your faithfulness and your loyalty in attending these. And I also really have valued you being at the retreats this past year. So thank you for attending them. And Sylvie, I'd like to speak today about history because a few questions have come through about that. And I would like to use something that you shared with me at the last month's retreat regarding your nationality being different to South African and so on and so forth. I just want to use that example when I share today about teaching history. So seeing as you're there, I'm very glad you're there because I was wondering, I can use it or maybe I shouldn't, or maybe I should check with you, but I was going to just keep it very general if I hadn't been able to check with you. So if you're there now, and you can just pop me a message to say, yes, it's okay, or no, it's not. And if you want to know more detail of what I mean, just stay with me because I want to be sharing with people today about teaching history. And the reason why I'm going to be focusing on that is because I got some questions coming for my next live stream. And here's one of them. It says, I hear lots of moms teaching history to their children in a chronological 4-year cycle, starting at the ancients and ending with modern times. What are your thoughts on adding such a resource to our curriculum? That was one of the questions. And so that is why I'd like to spend a little bit of time answering that question today on this live stream. So you'll notice that our title for this live streaming on the Oikos homepage after the fact is going to be called Teaching History. Okay, so let me dive into that. If you ladies have any questions or any input along the way, please just add it there. That would be great. In the meantime, I do hope you've got your tea. Oh, that is so good, even though it's so hot today. I'm so enjoying that cup of tea. Okay, so now about teaching history. When that question came in and I read it, I thought, I'm probably not the right person to be answering this question because I'm not going to answer it in the normal academic way, in a way that people maybe want to hear the answer regarding the importance of teaching history. Because in my childhood, I was taught history in a very different way. And so that is what I received as what I passed on to my own children. And that being the following, is that we actually followed our family heritages, as in we looked at, for example, Greg, my husband, he came from Welsh and Scottish background. I came from Norwegian and Scottish background. But yet Greg and myself are both South African born, so we've got the South African mix in there. But the way I was raised was with a strong Norwegian culture, mixed in with Scottish, but mostly Norwegian because my mother is from the Norwegian side, and she was the homemaker, the one raising the children as in what she was imparting to them, because Dad was out providing for the family. But the tradition of Scottish came through very strongly. So my experience of being taught history was very, very linked with what was relevant to us as children. And so I did the same for our children when we were raising our children. And I thought about this question before I came today to share with you about what do I think about the curriculum and what should be added to home educators that are teaching history. And that's when I thought about the conversation I had with Sylvie, because Sylvie is not South African born, but her husband is. And this topic came up at one of our moms retreats and we were talking about it. And Sylvie was saying that she doesn't understand South African history, or she doesn't have much knowledge about South African history. So how can she impart South African history to her children? So she can't really, because she doesn't have that knowledge in the first instance. So she was looking for resources that would help her to teach her children South African history. And then we chatted about it, and I said to her, what about your husband teaching them South African history? Because he's a South African. Where was he born and what he knows of South African history? And then and you teach them from your culture, from your where you were raised, your nationality. And so now your children are going to have a blend of both. And then I got to thinking further along about this whole topic. And I realized that the bit that I did learn in the actual system of the school system when I was a child, because I didn't go all the way through to the end with the school system because my mother pulled me out and started home educating me. But up until, actually, let me pause on that. It wasn't even called home educating or homeschooling at that point. It was called your child has special needs, not learning, not coping in the school system. So my mother pulled me home and started teaching me through entrepreneurship type of training. And so to her, it wasn't actually called homeschooling. She didn't call it that when she was educating me at home. She called it being a family and equipping me and training me and raising me and making sure that she had taught me what I needed to have to be a good wife and mother and homemaker, and also be a good steward of whatever it is that God entrusted to us, and be frugal and all those things. That's where the Scottish came in. Okay, but then because of this question, I was wondering what I remembered from the South African history that I was taught when I was in the school system. And I didn't like to spend too much time pondering on what I was taught because it was distressing. I remember history being one of the subjects when I was at school that upset me because it wasn't pleasant what I was learning. I didn't want to hear about the World War. But you see, that's why I said at the beginning, maybe I'm not the right person to be answering this question, because although I'm actually, surprisingly enough, passionate about history, I don't, how do I say this sensitively? I felt sensitive towards our children being little children and whether I would like to really be teaching them about slavery and apartheid and when they're so young and impressionable. And I was sensitive to whether I needed to be giving them that information. And so I steered away from it, actually. And I thought, when they're older, if they need to gather information about their history of the land that they were raised in, being in South Africa, we can always do that later when they're more mature. That's what I thought. Then it comes to the real ancient history, as in early history, early years. And I thought as well, then that's so far back that how's that relevant to them today and how's it going to impact them today? So what I did with history is I thought about the child and the age of the child and what was relevant to the child at that time of their life and what would be helpful and supportive and how history would be valuable to them. So now comes in Konos. I don't think I can ever not talk about Konos because you've probably gathered by now it's such a integral part of our whole experience of home education. When we were doing Konos, there was history there. I mean, there's a whole section on American history. And people go, oh, it's so American, it's not South African. We said, well, it's actually the ideas that are there. You don't have to do the different states of America. You do the different provinces of South Africa. So you use the ideas out of the Konos manual when it was focusing specifically on American history. So we were doing history when we were living Konos, but we were doing history that was pertinent to us at the time. For example, our children were born in KwaZulu-Natal, so I did some Zulu history with them and a little bit of that, but I didn't go into the whole King Shaka and all the rest because that was very disturbing. There was a lot of violence and death and war, so I just knew that wasn't necessarily what was appropriate for me to be teaching them. However, they did point out to me that right here in the Word of God, there's some fairly heavy-going books in the Bible here, and they said to me that we should censor the Bible. Only these books in the Bible can be read when you're over 13, and these ones when you're over 16, and so on and so forth. So there is that reference as well, the history of the Bible. And so what I did is I spent time on the history of the Bible, just sort of very briefly, and we didn't go into depth of it, because what then would happen is if I was doing Zulu history of KwaZulu-Natal or if we were doing some history of the Bible, If one of the children showed a particular interest in that particular area, let's say, okay, so we're doing a little bit of Zulu history and we're doing a little bit of Norwegian history because of my heritage and some Scottish history. So now you're going, well, where do I start and how do I do all of it? Well, we actually only did what was relevant at the time. So we weren't doing all of these things at the same time, some Natal history and some South African history and some Bible history and some Norwegian history. We weren't doing it all at once. We would be focusing on just one aspect of history, being say, the Norwegian heritage history. And if I found that the children had enough in that regard, then we would move on to, well, let's look at Dad's lineage now, and let's look at our heritage there, and let's see the Scottish and the Welsh history and heritage, and then we'd spend some time there. And you might be asking, but how do you know how much time to spend and how much knowledge the children should have? And I think this is the key, is that I wasn't teaching history for them to have knowledge. I was teaching history for them to be passionate about the realization, the understanding of what they had to give. That by having strong Norwegian heritage meant we had strong homemaking disciplines, as it were. And so now that was going to be beneficial in our daughter's married life, for example. So you see, I was teaching history for that purpose, not for the purpose of her understanding who was the King of Norway and from what year to what year and what was his name, because I didn't necessarily see that was relevant to her. However, it might have been important for her to understand royalty and obedience. And now we come to Konos, and we're doing obedience, and there's a whole section on being obedient to those in government, and the government that your country is in versus another country, and how the laws there affect you. So now this can be a history lesson, because now the laws 10 years ago were such, and then 10 years before that, they were something else. And then I got distracted when I was telling you about the ancient history, so I'm going to go back to that quickly, because Konos How, History of the World, goes very in depth in the ancient history side of things. And I found that was valuable lessons. That was after the children were from 16 years and upwards. But the reason why that was valuable is because they could see the foundation of the foundation of history and how it unfolds, and how what happened then has an effect on us today, and what effect does that have on us, and is it even relevant? So you see, this is a very different way to answer the history question of which history curriculum should I use, and how much history should my children should I be teaching them, and how much time should we be spending on history? Because history became part of life for us. It just blended in, and I'll tell you how it blended in. That was by doing Konos, because as I explained, if we're doing obedience and we're studying royalty, well, then we're doing some history. So for us, Konos living was a mix of all the different subjects. It wasn't focusing on one subject. We're doing geography, let's close the book, let's open the history book. Now we're doing history, let's close that. It wasn't like that. It was about focusing on being obedient people. And then with that, we would do a whole study on the topic of government or royalty or obeying the law, and where did the laws come from. And we could go all the way back into ancient times to see the first laws and how did they come about, and why did they come about, and why did it say in the word that God said, no, you don't really need a king, but if you think you do, you can have a king, but it would be better just to obey me than to need to have a king. But they needed kings, and so there's this whole history timeline in the Bible of all the different kings, and good kings and bad kings, and the effects of those kings on the people, the effect of the people back to the king, how they responded to the laws of the land at the time, if they were cruel kings or not, and so on. So I know this isn't just a clear-cut, straightforward answer about history, and you probably have gathered by now that it's never like that with Oikos, because we don't just have a prescription answer for things, because it is so dependent on each individual in your family. I think of Sylvia again now, and her little boy that was really sick for a while, and how that affected their whole family. So maybe they were studying things that they would never ever have studied, or weren't in the curriculum, or shouldn't even have a book about. They never even thought of considering what does bone marrow even, and what is its role in our lives. But now they're having to understand that, and explore it and learn it because that was what was relevant in their life at the time. That's got nothing to do with history. But then maybe it has, because maybe they're reading some testimonies of children that years ago had this treatment and that treatment and other treatment. And in fact, many years ago, if a child was diagnosed with a chronic condition, maybe they didn't recover from it. But now, together with history and science and medical science and all the rest of there's a relevance to that family as to why it might be a good thing to have studied history, the history of a particular disease, for example, and see how far science has come in being able to support and help them in their crisis. So you see, now that would be relevant history. And so that's why here at Oikos we don't have, or myself personally, because this is just me live streaming with you and sharing with you, I never ever had a history book that we started on page 1 and went through to the end. I never had a history curriculum. I had Konos, which is all those activities I was telling you about. And if you want to know more about Konos, you can go watch the workshop. We did a whole series of Konos it's on the website. You can watch it, Konos workshop. So that's what we had. We had numeracy and literacy, and then we had all the other subjects wrapped up together in this Konos manual, and we would teach whatever we needed to in the time that was relevant to our family's existence or circumstances or scenario at the time. So that is what I have to share with you regarding history. I'm just going to look over here and see if there's anything anything here of any questions that have come in. I know you're very open to me being able to share, Sylvie, with regard to sharing whatever it is that you have that would be helpful to others. So I'm very grateful for your open heart and your giving in that regard. Thank you for that. Just going to see what other questions there are. Oh, yes, this is another one. Somebody asked me, again, I could spend the rest of the afternoon talking about this, but somebody asked, what is the relevance of read aloud, and do I think it's important? Okay, I can give a straightforward, simple, straight answer on that one. I can just say, yes, it's very important. And the relevance is, what is the importance? It's huge. We were, as a family, found ourselves doing copious amounts of reading aloud because of our circumstances. And I have to say that at the time, when we were spending all these many, many hours going through many, many books, I didn't know, really and truly, I didn't know all the many advantages of reading aloud to your children. I didn't know the auditory development I was giving them, and I could go into all the value of reading aloud. But what I'm going to rather do is I'm going to suggest you go and do some research on that yourself and see. Because if I tell you, it's just going to be what I remember people telling me as far as what that research says. But what I can tell you as far as the fruit in our own family is concerned is the following. The one is our children love reading. Isn't that great? Another one is that they are rich in literature. So they have tremendous amount to give others because they have so much literature stored in them. And of course we read really, really good quality books. We didn't read nonsense. And so they were receiving Shakespeare and the like from when they were young. Well, I mean, that was the Lamb's Shakespeare. Loved that book. I read that to them. It's like the child version of Shakespeare's plays. And of course we've read through this a number of times, the Word of God. And so to me, I mean, how can I even begin to describe the value of having spent hours in the Word, reading aloud to your children the Word, because you know you've planted all those seeds into their lives and now they have them, and now as adults you know that those seeds are buried deep in them, and you trust and pray for them as praying mothers that the Lord will continue to water and the seeds will continue to grow and the fruit will come and that others will be able to partake of that fruit. And so the value of reading aloud is just so extremely great for me that I wouldn't, as I say, I would have to share with you on a personal level how much value that has brought to our family. But I'm just remembering, I think I've done a particular series possibly. Do you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking about now is that on our homepage at the moment, on the Oikos homepage, there's always a feature video below the current live streaming. And the feature video at the moment is treasure number 2. And it's a follow-on from reading aloud, treasure number 1, reading the word to your children. And it's the top 2 treasures of our family's learning lifestyle experience is reading aloud and reading the word. So I know that I've spoken more about it there. And I've also spoken, and there's other treasures there as well. So if you want to, over this time of counting your blessings, if you want to go and watch those treasure videos, hopefully they'll be supportive to you and inspire you to find your own treasures and list your own treasures for your learning lifestyle. So I'm not sure if I've done an actual full course on just the benefits of reading aloud. And I wonder if I would have to do a whole lot of scientific studies and research. Maybe not scientific was the wrong word. So, maybe I'd have to do a whole lot of research to find out what the actual academic benefits are of reading aloud. But for me, they were a lifeline. For me, that was the only thing I had to give was to read aloud to my children because they're both in a chronically ill situation. And I could read to them. I couldn't do a maths lesson with them. But when they were well, we did maths lessons. And so they're both well-educated people in numeracy and literacy. So it doesn't mean that they didn't get those lessons. They did. But reading aloud was something that could happen all the time. Okay. So let me have a look now at our... there's Sylvie saying hello to you too, Jamie. There's Jamie on the other side of the camera. He's doing all the technical stuff for this live streaming. When we finish this, he puts it up on the homepage and then it stays there until our next live stream. Okay, so I think I don't have any more questions. The one was about history and the other one was about read aloud. And I wanted to remind everybody about the moms retreats. And let me see what other announcements I had here. Oh, yes, there's another one here, and that was about special needs. If you're a mom that has got special needs situation in your household and you would like to book to come to one of the moms retreats specifically for that purpose, then what I would like to do with our moms retreat bookings is that I'd like to dedicate one particular one for special needs. So let's say in the middle of the year, one of the uneven numbers of the months of the year, I will set that time aside for a special needs retreat. Because as you know, we have had special needs in our own home, and myself included. When I was being raised, my learning didn't just come according to how it happens in the system. I had to have a unique way to be taught, and that's where my wise mother pulled me out of school and taught me at home. According to how I could learn, not how the system was teaching, and I couldn't learn that way. And so she found a way that I could. And so basically, I feel that we have a lot to give with regard to supporting and helping moms with special needs in their home. It's a different kind of approach to support. It's not the kind of support that maybe they're getting currently. It's more experience and life and how we have grown through those valleys and what we've learned from them with regard to special needs. So if you have, it is very near and dear to our hearts. So if you know someone who's got children with special needs, or you're watching this and you have a child with special needs or children, and you would like to attend a mom's retreat that's specializing in that, if I can call it specializing, focusing on that, then please let me know. Just email me, Sonia, SONJA, at oikosfamily.coza, and let me know that you would like to have a retreat dedicated to that. All right. And I am hoping it is the plan for us to be doing one final live streaming in 2018. So I'm hoping sometime during the course of next week, or at worst case scenario, what is next Saturday's date? I'll quickly hop on the calendar here and have a look. Next Saturday's date is the 29th. So either we're going to live stream one of the days during the week, or make sure we've live streamed by the 29th. So we'll have one final live streaming done in 2018. And thank you, Mandy and Sylvie, for being there, and whoever else in your family joined as well. Hello to Mandy and Sylvie's families. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Please be there. Thank you for being there. I really appreciate it. You know how much I value you and how much I appreciate that. Oh, before I go, Mandy, I must tell you, I showed Jamie some Christmas bells on the way here, because you know how you just overlook things like that sometimes. I mean, now he's a man. I don't think to say, oh, look, there's some Christmas bells. I might think it to myself. And you think that I would be in the habit of passing that on all the time, because I always have been. But things change when your children become adults. You stop thinking to do that as intentionally. So thank you for reminding me about the Christmas bells and seeing them in the forest, because it's helped me to be more noticeable of them and also to share them, because they're very, very pretty. So thank you, Mandy, for that. I've always learned something from you ladies. That's the thing about these moms retreats, is when the moms come, we learn from one another. So thank you, ladies, and have a wonderful week. Until next time. Bye.